Daniel Cormier was doing an interview. I think he was talking to Ryan on ESPN, but regardless of where he did the interview, Daniel said, Jon Jones, this is Daniel making a prediction. Jon Jones will come back. Jon Jones will fight for the heavyweight championship. Jon Jones will not win. No matter who is the heavyweight champion, right? Because you guys know exactly what he's talking about. Ciryl is going to fight Francis. The rumor is Jon Jones takes on the winner. Daniel is saying, regardless of who wins that fight, Jon will sign up. Jon will return and Jon will get beat. Now, I'm not asking you if you agree or disagree. That's between them, and quite frankly, we'll never know until they go out there. So why argue about it when we're not going to have to? We can sit back and watch it with our own eyes. I want to talk about the mindset to Daniel saying that, because what I'm hearing is Daniel doesn't believe he can beat either one of those guys. That surprises me. I think Daniel Cormier is a nightmare matchup for Francis Ngannou, who we have only seen lose in dominant fashion once, and that was to Stipe, by getting taken down and held there. So now you have a much more decorated wrestler in Daniel, who looks like he's looking at it and going, man, this guy's hard to take down. That's a huge compliment to Francis Ngannou. And then you have Ciryl Gane, who has spent a grand total of 0 seconds on bottom. He is the first and only champion in history who has never been taken down. That simply never happened before. So you now have, and he's from a country, in all fairness, they don't do that well in wrestling. So now you've got one of the most decorated wrestlers ever in Daniel Cormier saying, I can't take him down. Daniel could be right. I could be wrong. I'm going to DraftKings. I'm betting on DC in that fight. But maybe I'm locked into nostalgia, and maybe Daniel's thinking a little bit clear, but I do feel the first thing that Daniel is saying is, I can't beat those guys. I've been in there with Jon. I felt Jon, I know for sure. I've only looked at these guys, but my assessment is, and that's where that statement gets to be so interesting for me, is Daniel is a former champion, is standing back and tipping his hat saying these guys are a new era. In fact, when Daniel was talking to Ryan Clark, he even said those words, this is a new level of heavyweight. Have you guys seen enough for Ciryl Gane to put him in that category? Because Ciryl is getting a pass and a shine like I have never seen. None of you guys ever asked to see Ciryl Gane fight. The night that Ciryl Gane was going to go into an interim championship against Derek Lewis, you thought that Derek was going to win. You were not interested in Ciryl. I was at the weigh-ins when none of you cheered. I was there for the belt ceremony and the post-fight speech where you guys had a gratitude cheer but didn't give a goddamn about him. Ciryl has done absolutely no marketing for this next fight. We give Ciryl a pass, myself included, and we blame Francis for absolutely everything. I think in all fairness, we might need to stand back and look at this a little bit closer, because Daniel Cormier is now self-projecting as the former champion of the world that Ciryl Gane is on another level. Have you guys seen enough of Ciryl to come to that conclusion? Is Daniel right? Is Ciryl as good as Daniel thinks he is? Because he's going to have to be. When you're talking about Jon Jones, you hear that it's matchups that make fights. And that's usually said by some prick in the room that wants to look like he has a better understanding of the sport than the average man. But the reality is there is a level of truth to that, particularly because Francis and Ciryl are going to go strike all night long. Jon Jones is going to take you down. And if Jon doesn't take you down, he's going to threaten the takedown all night, which is why all those crazy Jon Jones techniques land right in the guy's mushad. Because it's the threat, and it's a very different fight. Is Daniel Cormier right? Is Ciryl Gane good enough that he can stop the takedowns for 25 minutes of Jon Jones? Because if he is, and if you've seen enough of that, just by seeing him in there, touching up a few people, you got Rosenstrike on the list, you got JDS on the list, you got Derek Lewis on the list. Have you seen enough of him to know that he's completely invincible? He hasn't been taken down yet, but I would submit for you, what wrestler has he ever taken on? It'd be very different if he was in there and beating Daniel Cormier and wasn't taken down, if he'd beaten Stipe Miocic who wasn't taken down, if he got in there and did the work with Cain Velasquez, but he didn't do those things. As a matter of fact, you want to know who did? At least part of them is his opponent, Francis. So I'm just asking the question, because I'm getting sucked into this vortex too. I'm leaning towards Ciryl Gane is going to win this fight. But if you're tuning in to see what's next for Jon Jones, because this is going to be the first time that Jon Jones falls on his face, I think you should be cheering for Francis. Francis is everything that Jon Jones has told us, and we'll take Jon at his word. Jon has told us that's a problem. Really big guys are a problem. If I'm going to lose, it's because I'm going to get knocked out. I'm going to get knocked out because I took on a really big guy that had more power. Okay, I don't know if it's true or not, but neither is Jon. It's Jon's opinion. Everything that he's saying is represented by Francis. None of it is represented by Ciryl. Ciryl has not buckled down and been in the gym and working on his wrestling like Francis did, that went out and got tested in Stipe Miocic, and we saw it actually worked. He learned. He knows about hips. He knows about head pressure. He knows how to scramble. He understands pummel inside. Francis showed us all of those things. Ciryl has not, because Ciryl hasn't been under attack. He hasn't been in there with somebody that's put him in those positions. Derek Lewis tried to take him down a grand total of never. Rosenstrike tried to take him down a grand total of 0 times. Junior Dos Santos went for a grand total of no takedowns. So when you come away with the equation that the guy's never been taken down, you do have to ask yourself the other question, which is, has anybody tried? But do you see the difference? People like to say, well, everybody's got the right to opinion. Not really. If you and I are having a debate on what's better, Coke or Pepsi, but then it gets revealed to me that you've never tried a Coke, you don't really get to have your opinion in that. So Ciryl Gane has got this big intimidating thing that's impressed Daniel Cormier, and we have to concede is also going to apply to Jon Jones, which is that he's absolutely never been taken down, and Jon's never won a fight unless he's taken the guy down. If that's the math that you're doing, but you then represent it with the fact that nobody's ever tried. Do you see where it becomes a problem? And do you see where perhaps we're being a little bit too generous to Ciryl? And I'm talking about me. It's not time to make my prediction yet, but that clock is ticking, and I'm going to have to come up with an answer. And I am leaning towards Ciryl. But do I have enough evidence for that? Does Daniel Cormier have enough evidence at this point? Have we seen Ciryl deal with every style? What's he going to do when somebody takes his back? What's somebody going to do when they push him into the fence and start dropping elbows on his face? That great big goose egg and never spending a second on bottom is just for now. This isn't some belief that over the life of your career you were never taken down. Can we agree to that? At some point, more likely than not, Ciryl does get put in that position. Can we agree that even in the sparring and training videos that have surfaced on the internet, none of them had Ciryl on the ground? Aren't we being a little bit generous with our opinions and our compliments to a guy who's never been in a position that his opponents never tried to put him in?